We are jumping into a reflection that is so perfectly timed for, the intensity of the Advent season. We've taken the core ideas and insights from this week's pastor's message, which was centered on the book of Micah, and we're going to unpack the challenge it really lays at our feet.
It's such necessary work right now. I mean, if you just look around, the world is saturated with noise.
Yeah.
We see the brilliant lights, you feel the rush of hurried footsteps, and we notice that our own hearts often feel restless, distracted, and just pulled in a million different directions.
That whole atmosphere of external preparation is precisely where the pastor started. We're so busy building the spectacle of Christmas that we risk missing the true quiet invitation.
Right.
So our mission in this deep dive is to try and pierce through all that clamor and distraction to hear a fundamental piercing voice. The message asked us to look deeply, not at what we plan to do next week, but who we are right now.
It centers on that foundational question from Micah chapter 6, with what shall I come before you?
Right.
And most people hear that, and they immediately start compiling an inventory, a checklist of good deeds, service commitments, offerings. They hear, what gifts have you prepared?
But the profound insight shared with us was that this question isn't just transactional, it's utterly existential. It's not really about the offering itself, is it?
No. It asks, who are you standing as right now? It demands an immediate focus on your current orientation, the fundamental direction of your life, long before we even get to any external display.
And the pastor emphasized that every scene in Scripture that depicts us welcoming God starts with this internal assessment.
Yes, always. God always looks first at the direction of the heart before any outward preparation is even considered.
I was so struck by the 3 biblical examples used to show how easily we can confuse the appearance with the reality.
There's such powerful contrasts.
Yeah.
So think first of 1 Samuel 16. The people, and even the prophet Samuel, they looked at Eliab.
The stature, the outward appearance of a king.
Exactly, the tall, handsome one. But God explicitly says that he looks at the heart. We judge the cover. God reads the soul.
That seems pretty straightforward, but then we got to the second example, 1 Kings 19, and it becomes much more relatable to our modern, noisy lives.
Yes. Elijah expected a powerful, dramatic display of God's presence. The wind, the earthquake, the fire, these huge visible signs of divine power.
Yeah.
And yet the voice of God came in a gentle whisper, a subtle sound that could only be heard in the stillness.
I found myself really thinking about that point. I mean, you literally have to stop, put down your phone, quiet your mind, and just resist that urge toward the traumatic just to perceive it.
And our Advent season is often the complete opposite of stillness.
It is a gentle whisper. I can barely hear myself think when the holiday music loop starts. If God is speaking in that soft voice, we had to intentionally design stillness into our lives, or we'll just miss it.
We will. We'll be too distracted by all the divine fanfare we create.
And that failure to distinguish fanfare from real presence was driven home by the third example, Jesus' entry into Jerusalem.
Right. We focus on the spectacle, the cloaks spread on the road, the shouting, the clapping.
Parade, yeah. But the pastor pointed out that the message revealed what Jesus actually saw when he looked past that cheering crowd.
He saw the marginalized, the wounded, the weeping, those small and unnoticed people hiding behind the grandeur of the temple structure.
He looked past the welcoming parade to the person in need.
And that leads directly to the danger of our own superficial preparation. We often say we're welcoming the Lord with devoted worship, better offerings, or diligent service. And, as the message affirmed, none of these actions are bad.
No, they're good works.
They are.
But here's the crucial check we were given. Do these good preparations actually change the fundamental direction of your life? We were warned by the words of Jesus to the Pharisees. You honor me with your lips, but your hearts are far from me.
And then the unwavering demand of John the Baptist. Produce fruits in keeping with repentance. It's a challenge to avoid substituting, religious motion for actual spiritual transformation.
Which means the coming of Jesus isn't just about marking days on a calendar.
No.
The Advent period, then, is a critical chance to pause, stop the rushing, and realign the direction of our lives. We have to honestly examine who we are standing as.
Are we leaning into religious acts that just add to our busy calendar? Or are we seeking a life truly reordered by the core requirements of justice, mercy, and humility?
And that distinction between adding acts and reordering your life is what leads us out of that stillness and directly into the legal drama of Micah chapter 6.
It is an abrupt shift, isn't it?
It really is. We move from quiet reflection to a massive courtroom scene. Micah 6, starting in verse 1, is absolutely unique in its structure. It's not a cozy sermon or a worship service.
It is a full-blown legal accusation. God essentially tells his people, rise, plead your case before the mountains. So God is taking on the role of the accuser. The people are the defendant, and the witnesses that are summoned are enormous. The mountains, the hills, the very foundations of the earth.
I thought that was such a powerful detail. Why the mountains?
Because they're the silent, immovable witnesses of history. They were there for the Exodus. They saw the covenant at Sinai. They watched the settlement of the land.
And they've been observing the people's repeated failings ever since.
Exactly. So God is stating that this isn't some emotional outburst. The very history of creation testifies to the breach of covenant.
And then comes that emotional climax in verse 3, where the legal challenge just turns into this heart-wrenching question. My people, what have I done to you? Have I burdened you? Answer me.
It's so vulnerable. It highlights a deep truth about love. In any relationship, the one who loves more is often the most vulnerable to being hurt or, forgotten. God is reminding them of pure past grace, leading them out of Egypt, sending dedicated, humble leaders like Moses, Aaron, and Miriam.
And this reminder allows the pastor's message to dive into that profound insight about the root of spiritual decline, which, simply put, is forgetting.
Forgetting the acts of grace God has performed is the start of a terrible spiritual cancer. The message laid out a dangerous, four-step cascade that we all risk falling into.
So first, when we forget God's grace, those undeserved gifts and forgiveness, what happens?
We immediately start taking blessings for granted. The wonder just disappears. The job, the family, the health, it becomes a right, not a gift.
And once we forget grace and blessings become rights, what's the next step in that decline?
Only obligation remains. The joy of service or worship gets replaced by this burdensome checklist.
It's like you have to be at church or you must read the Bible.
Yes, not because you want to connect with God, but because it's a spiritual chore you have to complete to keep the account balanced.
That distinction really resonates. When you see people burning out in service, it's often because the task moved from a grateful act into a heavy obligation.
Right, and if obligation's all that's left, then salvation itself becomes.
It's religiosity.
Exactly. When we forget salvation itself, only religiosity remains. Faith stops being a vibrant, living connection and becomes a social system, a set of rules and customs that are respectable on the outside, but, empty inside.
And finally, when we forget the original love that started the whole relationship,
all that's left is ritual. Faith ceases to be relational. It becomes a mere transaction. Form replaces genuine gratitude and joy. We're just going through the motions, performing the steps, hoping the physical act will somehow trigger the emotional connection that's been lost.
And the dangerous human response to feeling that hole is to try and fill it with bigger and bigger offerings, like we see in Micah.
They offer a year-old calf, then thousands of rams, rivers of oil, and finally the unthinkable. Their firstborn child.
It's terrifying.
It is. They've forgotten that God gave his firstborn, and their assumption is frighteningly simple. I have not given enough yet. If I just give more, maybe I'll be saved, maybe I'll be loved.
And we see that same impulse today. When we see overzealous devotion people giving to the point of collapse or pledging money they don't have, we often praise it externally. As admirable sacrifice. But the message offered a necessary sharp critique. This kind of overzealous devotion, while impressive to the crowd, can often reveal a desire for a self-manufactured reward without any genuine life transformation.
So the core teaching is that fallen faith often chooses that overzealous devotion over true obedience.
Yes.
Why is that trade-off so appealing, though? Why choose the expensive overcommitment?
Because true obedience requires changing your life. It forces you to move differently, act differently, heal broken relationships.
Right.
Overcommitment, however, just asks you to add something external, write a bigger check, sign up for another committee, without demanding transformation of the inner conflicted self.
It's easier to burn a calf than to fix a broken relationship with a family member or extend true justice to a coworker. That is the profound distinction. So if we strip away the transactional mentality and let go of the overzealous effort to earn love, we finally arrive at that central, profound confession of faith in Micah 6.8.
But before we even get to the 3 requirements, the pastor urged us to first let go of the non-essential things.
The minor conflicts and obsessions that consume us in our families, workplaces, even our communities, we have to clear the clutter in our hearts so we can hold on to the essential truth of that one verse.
And I appreciate the universal address here in verse 8. He has shown you, oh man, what is good. It's not just the kings or the influential.
No. God calls all who exist, you and me, to this single, simple pathway of obedience. It's the summation of all the law and the prophets.
What does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. So let's start with justice.
To act justly, mishpat.
Yeah, that word is often confusing because we tend to equate it with just mere fairness.
But the message clarified that mishpat is far deeper. It's not just fairness in the abstract. It is God's rule realized in our actual messy lives.
Okay, so when God's justice is truly realized,
the weak are protected, the oppressed are restored, and all relationships, personal, community, economic, are set right.
But what does mishpat look like on a Monday morning? That's where it gets hard.
It's highly practical. It means we cannot ignore the weak. It means checking our language. Are we using violent words, mocking or sneering at others, even in private? It means in a business context, ensuring a temporary worker gets fair pay or giving credit where it's due rather than hoarding praise for ourselves. If we look down on others, we reveal that we do not truly believe in the justice God demands.
That is a powerful check against indifference. The second requirement is to love mercy, Hesed.
Hesed is a huge concept. It's God's covenantal love. And we have to understand that we live in a society that really cheapens love, treating it as this fleeting emotion that demands no sacrifice, no persistence, no bearing of pain.
Right.
Living a life of true Hesed requires immense courage and commitment because it is enduring active loyalty.
So we're commanded to mirror God's enduring mercy, to sacrifice, to yield our ground, to give way, even endure unfairness when we feel slighted.
And the beautiful instruction is not just to perform acts of mercy, but to love mercy. To orient our entire will toward compassion, forgiveness, acceptance, and embracing the vulnerable.
So it's not a chore, it's something we grow to want to do.
Exactly. We stop resisting when the call comes to forgive or to sacrifice. We become agents of grace because we have received grace.
And finally, we come to the third requirement, to walk humbly with your God. We often hear humility and think of, shrinking ourselves or talking down our accomplishments.
But true humility is deeply relational, as the message emphasized. It is about matching God's pace. It's aligning our direction and our will with His.
So walking in step with God, not rushing ahead in our own frantic, self-reliant ambition.
Or lagging behind in doubt or spiritual laziness. It's a constant self-check. Humility is admitting that my agenda for solving this problem might be inferior to His timing, or that my plan for my life is less perfect than His.
It's an absolute surrender of the pace and the priority.
It is. And when we look at that Hebrew word for require, it's not a decree from a distant ruler. It implies seeking, longing, and expecting within a relational bond.
It's an invitation born of love, not a decree of a law. God is asking us, beloved child, knowing the grace you have received, does this not align with the direction your life should take? Is this not the most joyful way to walk?
That is the profound truth we have to hold on to. But we also have to acknowledge that living out Micah 6.8 is challenging. Justice allows for no neutrality.
Right. Silence and indifference, as the pastor noted, often uphold the very broken structures we are called to dismantle. So this is the practical challenge for our Advent preparation. It's not about adding more. It's fundamentally about removing unnecessary things, the distractions, the bitterness, the self-interest, and ruthlessly reordering the priorities of our lives.
We have to look honestly at where we spend our time, whose pain we respond to, and by what standards we judge our neighbors and ourselves. That reordering, that shift in direction, is the only true way to prepare.
We must become worthy of the waiting, not by exhausting ourselves with rituals, but by transforming our relationship. So reflect deeply this week on that original question. With what shall I welcome the Lord? It is a call to prepare the most precious space for Him, a life committed to justice, mercy, and humility.
And the provocative thought for you to carry forward is this. If walking humbly means matching God's pace, where in your life right now are you running so far ahead, relying only on your own strength, that you can no longer hear His gentle whisper?
Pursue a life of gratitude and joy, walking with Him daily. Thank you for diving into this with us.